The world is gripped by a zombie apocalypse, and rare groups of survivors wander the ravaged land, clinging to the remnants of hope. One such group becomes aware of a mysterious village surrounded by legends. Allegedly, this place is protected from zombies, as if an unknown force prevents them from entering. The inhabitants, as they say, continue to live in safety, as if the catastrophe has not touched them at all. Despite the skepticism, the story begins to overshadow the characters' fears. Leah recalls an old map with a marker of an unknown settlement that matches the description of the village. Jessica, the leader of the group, decides to take a chance and embark on the journey. Along the way, they hear eerie rumors from other survivors. Some who went in search of this village never returned. The group feels the tension building with each mile, but the desire for peace outweighs the fear. As the survivors approach the supposed site of the village, they find themselves in a dense, gloomy forest. The trees here look unnatural. Their branches are broken. Their bark is stained with dark spots, as if a struggle had taken place here, leaving traces. There is an oppressive silence in this forest. Not even birds or insects can be heard. The only thing that breaks the silence is the strange sounds coming from deep in the forest, like the crunching of twigs or muffled footsteps. Michael, an experienced tracker, suddenly freezes. He says he feels a strange pressure in his head, as if someone or something is trying to penetrate his thoughts. This feeling intensifies. As they progress, the forest seems endless, and everyone begins to feel that they are being watched. When they stop for the night, Jessica is awakened by a strange whispering. It seems to her to be coming from deep within the forest, but none of the group moves. With barely suppressed fear, she peers into the trees and notices dark silhouettes moving slowly between the branches. As soon as her gaze lingers on one of them, the figure disappears. In the morning, she tells the group about it, but no one has an answer to her questions. Finally, the group emerges from the forest and reaches a village. At first glance, the place seems strangely idyllic. The houses are well maintained, the fences are intact, and lamps glow in the windows. What's more, there is the smell of food in the air, as if life here hasn't changed since before the apocalypse. But the silence here is even more ominous than in the forest. There is no one outside, and the windows, though lit up, seem to hide someone's attentive gaze behind them. The villagers appear after a time. Their faces are grim, their expressions closed. They speak little and seem to avoid contact. An old man named Owen, the owner of one of the huts, agrees to shelter the group for the night. During the conversation, he mentions that the village is special. No one dies here for nothing, he says, without explaining the details. The characters sense that there is something more behind these words, but fatigue forces them to accept the offer to stay. At night, Tom cannot sleep. Here is a strange restlessness that grips him that he can't explain. Lying on his bed, he begins to hear sounds like something moving under the floor. They are too distinct to be a figment of imagination. Tom decides to check out the source. He cautiously creeps down the hallway and hears muffled voices from the other room. Through a crack in the door, he sees two villagers discussing something animatedly, but their words are muffled by the walls. The only thing he hears clearly is the phrase, "If they find out, we'll all die." In the morning, Tom tells the group about the conversation he overheard, but the villagers pretend nothing happened. Their wariness becomes more and more apparent, causing growing anxiety among the survivors. During his nightly rounds, Michael notices an unlocked door leading to a dungeon. The group decides to head downstairs. The tunnels beneath the village look like they haven't been used in a long time. The walls are covered in mold, and the air is musty and heavy. At the end of one of the tunnels, they find a huge laboratory. The room is filled with old equipment, broken instruments, and massive tanks filled with murky liquid. Through the glass of these tanks, they see vague human figures, motionless and devoid of will. Tom suggests that these are obedient zombies created to follow orders. Their brains are probably controlled by some substance that suppresses aggression, but preserves reason. The heroes begin to realize that the villagers have been conducting experiments on humans, turning them into controllable zombies. They find documents proving that the village is being used as a laboratory to test methods of controlling the infected. They also realize that the residents are afraid of information leaks. One of the records they find reads, "Any attempt to leave the village must be stopped. Anyone who learns the truth will become part of the experiment." When the heroes attempt to leave the village, all exits are blocked. The villagers claim it's for their own safety, but now it sounds like a threat. Panic begins to set in. In desperation, the heroes run through the tunnels, but soon notice that the zombies, which were considered docile, begin to behave aggressively. Their control over them is broken. Now the heroes are faced with creepy creatures, devoid of fear and pain. Fighting and losing many, they make their way to the exit. The forest beyond the village becomes their only chance of escape. As they look back at the dying village, they realize that there is no place for life here, only for experimentation.